So I served in Buenos Aires, the city of Buenos Aires, from 2015 to 2017. There were a couple big things that happened then. Politically, there was a change in president, which was really interesting. We actually had to stay in our apartments for a day or two, because when there's a big change like that politically in Argentina, there's a lot of upheaval, right? A lot of riots, a lot of people, but nothing too dangerous, I don't think, probably. So there was a switch in that, there were things like that, but also there was a switch in my mission. I arrived to the South mission, and then it split into the East mission when I was a couple months in, which was a really incredible experience for me. I got to see the difference between one mission president to the other mission president, from one mission to the other. I got to see the mission, Buenos Aires East, from its very beginnings, and it really was quite incredible. The missionaries that we had, we're just a ragtag bunch of kids, right? Missionaries, we're such an eclectic group. We're really the least likely group of people to do these kind of things, to travel and to adventure and to preach and to share, and the passion that goes with all of that. And that's what I got to see when the mission split, was the beginning of something incredible, something that really does change people's lives and changes the world. And that's what you have to believe as you go out there, that you're there to change yourself and other people. It's possible. It's so possible with the help of the Lord. As for Buenos Aires, it's a very European city, actually. Where I was in the south end and the east end, which was it's a lot more poor. So there was a lot of immigrants there. There's a lot of Peruanos. There's a lot of Peruvians and a lot of Bolivians in the Buenos Aires East mission, but there's also a lot of Argentines, obviously. Now, the Argentines are an interesting people because they have a lot of European descent. There's a lot of Italians, Germans as well, Spaniards, things like that. And so there's a lot of European influence for being, such a South American country. Being so European, there's a lot of Catholic influence, There's some evangelist, Baptist, things like that, but the majority of people are Catholic, actually, which is really, really great. I get to learn a lot of new things with that. There's also something interesting about Argentina, is that they love to sleep la siesta. It's like a nap, right? And so anywhere from 1 to 5 o'clock, there's just no stores open. Nobody's on the streets because everyone is sleeping. It's very different than the American culture. Something that was hard for me to learn was the timing of things. I'm so used to kind of a business mindset, an American mindset, where you set a time to go somewhere and you show up at that time. In Argentina, it's not that way. You might set something up, and half an hour later, people might show up. It's definitely a different sense of time. As for the actual church in the Buenos Aires East Mission, there's just incredible members. There really are some of the most faithful people you'll meet. Not to say that it doesn't have they don't have their flaws, or their faults, or their errors. But I know that in each of my areas, I can point out more than one family that gave everything they had, that were truly faithful, good saints. There's 7 stakes, or there's 6 stakes in the mission, and then there's 1 district filled with branches. Inside the city, there's these 6 stakes with more members. They're by all these buildings. It's definitely the hustle bustle lifestyle. And then there's this district that's on the coast. It's on the Atlantic coast. Absolutely beautiful. I was really lucky and got to serve there actually. But in this district where there's branches, there's a lot less members. Maybe 5 people go to church a week. Maybe 20 people go to church a week, and the church is, it's just working its way up, getting better and better every week, really, according to the work and the faithfulness of the missionaries. An average attendance, maybe you'll get 60 people, 80 people, 100 people at church. There are quite a few names on the less active list. There's a lot of people to be reactivated, a lot of work in the reactivation of members. Something I love about the Argentine culture is just how warm they are. At least the culture in Buenos Aires East. I met a lot of really incredible people that have changed my life, and they were so willing to open their door for me. They were so willing to let me eat with them. I can count multiple experiences when we didn't have lunch, and we were walking and we started talking to someone, and they saw that it was cold out, or it was raining, or it was really hot out, and they'd say, "Oh, well, come eat lunch with us." They love to have us over, and we may not have converted them, we may not have baptized them, but I'll forever be grateful for those people that gave me water when it was hot out, or gave me food when I was hungry. You'll find that the Lord truly is with you if you just obey, if you just work, if you just have faith, if you just open your mouth. Let's see. Oh, they also give besos, which is like a kiss. So when they meet people, they always go, which you're not allowed to do as a missionary, but it's such a cultural norm that it's bound to happen to you at one point. So we always used to joke about different ways that you could avoid the besos. In Argentina, so in Buenos Aires, especially in the east, you're on the coast, and you're in this little place. It's called El Rio de la Plata, right? The River of Silver. and on that, being there on the ocean, it's very, very humid. It's wet. You can almost feel it in the air. It's kind of like the feeling after you go skiing and you come home and you're kind of wet to the bone. You're kind of cold to the bone. That's the kind of humidity it is, which is a big change from where I come from, which is Montana, which is a pretty dry state. So it's really humid, and then it rains quite a bit too. And when it rains hard. There are some pretty crazy storms. I remember I was in the coast in an area, and this big storm came in from the ocean, and the streets were just flooded. You know, they were halfway up cars. We were trying to ride our bikes, and I mean, it was over the tires, that kind of thing. So that's always exciting, weather like that. In the summer, it gets really, really hot, honestly. The reason being it's so humid, and so you'll be out there and you just feel like you're drinking water almost because the air is so thick. I loved it though. And then after, they have a nice spring and a nice fall. You know, it's 70s, 60s maybe. The winters, they're not cold compared to Montana, for instance, or Utah, or a lot of these kind of winters. But they're cold because, once again, it's so humid. And so it's definitely a good idea to bring a jacket, have something to cover up because it's that wet coldness. Anyways, Buenos Aires specifically is a very, very neat city because it has a lot of different cultures. It has a lot of, for instance, in Buenos Aires East, there's a big cathedral, kind of Gothic style, really, really neat, old architecture. There's a lot of European architecture mixed with Latino art, right? One of my favorite artists from Argentina, her name is Molina Campos, and she's a painter, and she paints the gaucho culture. The gauchos are kind of like Argentine cowboys. They really are. They're pretty incredible. They herd cows all over the Patagonia, Las Pampas, things like that. And there's a lot of pride in that culture in Argentina. There's also things in the East Mission. There's a zoo that you can visit. There's a museum that you can visit. Those are more in the city. Those are all great places to go, fun things to see. There's also other things that I like about the culture, little things that are kind of funny. They all drink mate, which is kind of like if you just took a bunch of grass, put it in a cup, and poured boiling water on it. It's most missionaries don't love it at first, I don't think, but it's kind of an acquired taste. But they drink this mate every morning, and they drink it with hot water, and I love it now. I drink it all the time. I brought a bunch back with me. They also have these little cookies called alfajores, which are super good. I love those. They also, they eat a lot of different food. For instance, I spent a lot of time with Peruvians in the Buenos Aires East Mission, and they eat these things called antecuchas, which is cow heart, right? And then they'll kind of flay it and put it on a shish kebab, and it's really good, actually. One time I ate cow stomach, mondongo, and I'm not a big fan, but it was definitely interesting. I think my favorite food that they do is they have these things called asados, which is it's kind of like a barbecue, but they cook with coals instead of a gas fire, and so you'll have this big grate, right, and underneath you'll have these hot coals, and then they'll just throw meat on there, just huge slabs of meat, not the ones that like you'll just find cut up at Walmart or something like that. They literally just like throw on slabs of cow, right? And it's awesome. It's so good. They eat a lot of meat and a lot of pasta, which is kind of surprising. A lot of people think they think South of America, they all eat spicy food, Mexican food. It's not like that at all. They eat meat and they eat pasta, and they eat a lot of it. So that's great. To learn the language, it's going to take a little bit, but there are ways to make it a lot faster. Set goals. Learn 50 vocabulary words a week. If you're pre-mission right now, then get Duolingo on your phone. Start reading it. Try to start reading maybe an article in Spanish. Every little thing counts. The biggest thing, there's 4 parts to learning a language, right? There's reading, writing, speaking, and hearing. The first 2 that you're really going to need to get down are speaking and hearing. The MTC really is an incredible experience. Don't take it for granted and study. Learn the language. However, when you're there, when you're 2 months in and you already want to know everything and you're super frustrated and you wish you spoke better, just calm down. Calm down. The most important thing is that you're focused on your purpose as a missionary. The language will come, I promise. Give it a couple months, give it a couple more weeks, give it a couple more days. Just chip away at it. The other advice I'd have for language is don't be afraid to learn it well. Don't be someone that just learns it because they're there and they're hearing it and it just comes upon them. Make it a goal to learn it well. Speak it better than the natives. Speak it so that you can write well, so that you can hear well, so that you can read well. As for learning the language, I'm super grateful that I got to learn Spanish while I was there. I use it all the time back here in the United States. I think it's a beautiful language. It's something I want to use in my job. Really is something special. Learning Spanish honestly teaches you a little bit more about life. You can see their culture better through their language. I know that's a big concept in sociology, is that a lot of people's cultures are defined by their language to a certain extent. So learning Spanish is awesome. Having said that, learning Spanish was probably the least useful of all the skills I learned on my mission. The reason I say that is that is that learning that God loves you, learning that Jesus Christ is our Savior, sharing something that you're passionate about, those all mean so much more to me than just learning another language. I once again, I reiterate, I'm so grateful that I learned Spanish, and I love it to death. But the bigger and the more important lessons in the mission is that good people are needed in the world. And that faith is a real thing. Faith is tangible. When I think about everything that happened to me in Buenos Aires East, I mean, there's so much I could talk about. There's so much, and there's so much that I just won't share because it's so personal. But if you serve a mission, and if you serve it right, you will have undeniable evidence that God lives. I asked for some funny ones about Argentina, just about Buenos Aires. You just run into that. That's something that I love about a mission, is it's so personal, but it's also it's one of the last forms of true adventure, I think. I mean, you wake up every day and you're there to just meet new people. You're just on the streets or in houses with families, and you're just sharing what you know to be true. It's quite an incredible experience. I remember there was an elder in our mission. His name was Elder Sosa, and while we were there, his mom got very sick. She got very, very sick with cancer, and President asked us to do a fast as an entire mission. So we all fasted, right? And she got better. She left the hospital. And it was a miracle. It was. About 6 months later, she went back to the hospital. The president asked us to fast. We did. And she passed away. But what was really interesting about this week is that we had just given out a challenge to each missionary that very day that they would give out 20 copies of the Book of Mormon in one day, which was quite a few. And Elder Sosa, the elder whose mom had just passed away, I remember being with President when he called Elder Sosa and he told him the news. And it was heartbreaking. We were kids. No kid should go through that. And I felt so bad for him. But I remember as Elder Sosa went throughout his day, when I finished the day, I got a text from him, and they were reporting their numbers, and Elder Sosa had given out all 20 Book of Mormons on the day his mother died. And if that's not a testimony, then I don't know what is. Elder Sosa knew that families are eternal, and he knew that the gospel is true. And he used that to drive him. He used that passion and that love to drive him. Now, on a separate note, at least I felt a little bit this way before my mission. I feel like a lot of people, a lot of us before our missions, we think, but I don't have that passion. I don't have that drive. I've never loved the gospel like that, which I can't say I did either. I just trusted that inkling that said there's something to this. You'll learn to be that passionate missionary. You'll learn to be bold. Heavenly Father, the Lord will give you the experiences to make you into something more than you are. But it takes a step of faith. One of the best parts about the mission is that you're so close with these other missionaries. And the reason why is you suffer together just a little bit. I mean, you go and you walk and it's hard and there's rejection. I mean, probably the hardest things that will ever happen to you. And you do it with someone, with a companion. You know, you do it with this entire group of missionaries, these other 19, 20-year-olds that are just as crazy as you to be out there. and that's something that I love about it. Elder Holland, he quotes someone in one of his talks at BYU, and he says, "Love is what we go through together." And I think that's why you get so much out of a mission. Because you go through a lot together. You suffer, you walk, you get rejected together. There are very few relationships that are more important to me than the ones that I made on my mission. My testimony is simple. It's that Jesus Christ has allowed us to live again with our families. It's that the Book of Mormon is true. I testify that Joseph Smith was a prophet. I know that it's really easy to doubt. It's really easy to complain, to be cynical. But faith is something much stronger than that and much more useful beyond all things than that. As for my specific testimony on the mission, I testify that it's the right choice. If you're watching this and you're pre-mission, you have your call, I'd say to you, good job. Get out there, be obedient, and you'll never regret this, and you'll never do anything else quite like it. If for some reason you're watching this and you're wondering if you should go, you serve a mission. It is the right thing to do. I understand the exceptions, the few exceptions, but there's no real excuse. Serve a mission. My testimony is that there's no other thing quite like it. No other thing quite like the mission. And the reason being is that it's the truth. And people need to know that, and we need to remember that.